folks, Lee from the Dutchman's Journal. I'm standing in front of my cattle panel greenhouse and I'm going to install a little addition to it. I never seem to have enough space and I need a place to put my garden tools and some of my supplies that I have in the greenhouse, and I want to put them in a different area. So the idea here is to extend the cattle panel greenhouse, put some shelves in, put some hangers on one side for the tools, shelves on the other side, and I think I can come up with a way to put a roof completely around the cattle panel greenhouse that's pretty simple and actually will be eye-pleasing. The first thing I'm going to do is remove my door from the front of the greenhouse. Now with the door removed, which I'll probably reinstall, but it's going to open to the inside of the greenhouse. But now I have to concentrate on removing the ground stakes that I've put in order to hold the building down in case of a strong wind. I have one on each side of the building, so I'm going to try and pull those out. Now with both of the anchors removed, I'm able to go ahead and grade out the area to build the shed. It's going to be 4 foot by 7 foot. The cattle panel building itself is 7 foot wide, so I'm going to maintain that. And the panel itself being 50 inches, if I add 4 foot to the building, that 50-inch cattle panel height will fit just perfect in here. The framing of the cattle panel greenhouse is made from 2x6s, and I'm going to continue on with the shed. I've just cut it to 4 foot, and I put one leg on each side. And now I'm going to go ahead and just see how much I have to dig down on this side. Put my level on it, and it appears to me that I have to go down maybe a half an inch on that side, and on the other side I have to dig down about 2.5 inches. Not too bad. I've laid out my framework for the shed. It's been temporarily leveled, and now I've squared it. Now I'm going to attach it to the frame of the greenhouse. I'm using pieces of 1x5 decking, and I'm going to just marry them to each side of the building and to the extension. I've attached the framing together. Now I'll remove the electric, and I will remove the insulation from around the top of the greenhouse. Now the insulation from around the top of the greenhouse is removed, and the electrical wire has been pulled from inside. When I rewire this, I'm going to not have the electric inside the greenhouse. I'm going to have it in the shed area. Now it appears that I'm ready to go ahead and install the cattle panel fencing inside of the new frame. I've cut a piece of the cattle panel fencing out in each corner so that it will be able to fit squarely up against the old part of the greenhouse, and I did that on both sides. Both sides had it cut out. Now that the spacers are in place on the bottom, I'm pretty close to being in line with the old greenhouse cattle panel. I'm using plastic pull ties in an awl to punch a hole in the plastic, and then just attach the two cattle panel fencings together so they line up appropriately. You could probably use wire if you wish. And then after I get done poking the holes in there and running the plastic ties through, I'm just going to cover those holes over with some Gorilla Tape. Now I'm going to attach the bottom of the cattle panel fencing with the fencing staples, just like I did inside the cattle panel greenhouse and the cattle panel chicken coop. Alright, both sides of the cattle panel fencing is attached to the frame, and now on to the next part. I decided to make a 28-inch door, so I marked out my center, and then each side I'm going to go 14 inches from side to side. Now I'm going to cut a stud to go all the way up to the top. Using my square, I marked this stud on the top of the wire. If I can just hold this here. I need 3 hands. How come we weren't born with 3 hands? Okay, I'm going to just mark the stud up there. Now I'm going to cut it. I fastened the bottom of the stud by toe drilling 2.5 inch deck screws into the sides of the stud. Now I'm going to come up here, and what I've done is I've tacked in some finishing nails, and I'm going to use them as staples by banging them around the wire of the cattle panel fencing. As you can see, I've peened those finishing nails, and I drove them into the top of the stud, and that's fastened pretty securely. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Studs for both sides of the door opening are fastened, and they're used actually to support right now when we put the siding on the building so it doesn't collapse. So let's give that a shot. This is a couple of the boards that I'm going to use as siding or roofing, depending upon how you look at it, to go up on the side of my building. I've cut 3 pieces here to the appropriate length, and yes, that's right, I attached them with plastic pull ties. All I did was drill a hole through the board and fastened it to the wire, and I'll put more in, but I'm just going to get started, put 2 in, go up so high, and I'm going to also use an adhesive on it to kind of stick them together. Well, as you can see, I've gotten to the point where the whole exterior has been attached and goes on or completely around. I've left the top of it open because I'm going to put a piece of plexiglass across there as a skylight. I have all these stalactites hanging down from here, of which I'm going to go ahead and remove, and then tomorrow I will go ahead and install the front of the building. Well, it's the next day, and it rained heavily last night, and there was some runoff that came inside of the shed itself, which I actually expected. But my plan is to just caulk the seams that are actually the roof part rather than the side part. And a little bit of rain running on down the walls certainly isn't going to make any major difference. But I also went first thing this morning to get more wood to do the enclosure in the front. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and install my electric back in here so I can use my power tools without having to walk back and forth to the house. Well, I've reinstalled the electrical system, so I now have power out here to the building, and I'll just let the wire hang there temporarily until I'm done putting in all of the shelving. But now I can go ahead and continue on with enclosing the little shed area itself.